The helicopter appeared on the third day, which was 2 days before I expected anyone to even notice I was missing. I was standing ankle-deep in the creek when I heard it. The sound came from the west, growing louder in that distinct rhythmic chop that doesn't occur in nature. I looked up through the gap in the forest canopy and saw it pass overhead, maybe 200 feet up, moving fast. Orange and white, search and rescue colors. I didn't wave. I didn't shout. I just stood there with my water bottle half submerged, watching it disappear over the ridge. The whole thing lasted maybe 15 seconds. I'd been hiking alone in the Gifford-Pinchot Wilderness area since Monday morning. It was Wednesday now, a little past noon, based on where the sun sat in the sky. My phone had died the first night. I'd forgotten to charge it before leaving Seattle, and my watch had stopped working after I'd slipped crossing a stream on Tuesday. The crystal had cracked and water got inside. The plan had been simple. I was going to hike the Southern Loop Trail, about 30 miles total, camping at designated sites. 3 days, 2 nights. I'd done it twice before. I had permits, a filed trip plan with the ranger station, proper gear, everything by the book. The problem started Monday afternoon, when I took what I thought was a shortcut to avoid a washed-out section of trail. The main path had been undercut by spring runoff, a whole chunk of hillside just gone, leaving a gap too wide to cross safely. I saw what looked like an old deer trail cutting upslope through the trees, and I followed it. That was the mistake. Not a dramatic one. Not the kind you see in movies where someone makes an obviously stupid choice. Just a small miscalculation that seemed reasonable at the time. The deer trail faded after half a mile. I kept going, thinking I'd intersect the main trail higher up. I didn't. By the time I admitted I'd lost the trail completely, the sun was getting low and I was tired. I made camp in a flat spot near a seasonal creek, ate a freeze-dried meal, and told myself I'd sort it out in the morning. Tuesday, I tried to backtrack, couldn't find my own route from the previous day. The forest all looked the same: Douglas fir, western hemlock, vine maple undergrowth. I checked my compass and headed east, which should have brought me back to the main trail, or at least to the logging road that marked the wilderness boundary. What I found instead was more forest, and then rough terrain that slowed me down, steep ravines choked with fallen timber, dense patches of salal that I had to push through or go around. I was sweating through my shirt despite the cool air, using energy faster than I wanted to. Around midday Tuesday, I twisted my ankle stepping over a log. Not badly. I could still walk. But it hurt, and I had to move slower, test each step. That's when I started thinking about my timeline. The ranger station had my itinerary. I was supposed to finish the loop and check out by Thursday afternoon. If I didn't show up by Friday morning, they'd probably start looking. Maybe Friday afternoon. Definitely by Saturday. So I had time. I had food for another day, maybe 2 if I stretched it. I had water purification tablets. I had warm clothes and a sleeping bag rated to 20 degrees. I had fire-starting equipment and a first aid kit. I was uncomfortable and turned around, but I wasn't in immediate danger. The smart thing was to stay calm, conserve energy, and work my way systematically toward the boundary, or find a clearing and wait for the search that would eventually come. Then I heard the helicopter on Wednesday. After it passed, I stood in the creek for another minute, water numbing my feet through my boots. I was trying to make sense of what I'd just seen. Someone was looking for me, which meant someone had reported me missing. But I wasn't supposed to be missing yet. I wasn't even late. I filled my water bottle, added a purification tablet, and walked back to where I'd left my pack on a fallen log. My ankle was stiff from standing in the cold water. I sat down and took my boot off, examined the swelling. Not terrible. I could walk on it. The helicopter sound had faded completely. The forest was quiet again except for a Steller's jay calling somewhere upslope. I thought about my emergency plan. I had a whistle. I had a signal mirror. I had a bright orange emergency blanket. But the helicopter had already passed. Using the whistle now would just waste energy. The signal mirror was useless under tree cover. What I should have done, I realized, was immediately find an opening in the canopy. Get to a clearing. Make myself visible while the helicopter was still in the area. They might make another pass. They might have a search pattern. I put my boot back on, pulled my pack on, and started moving uphill. Higher ground might give me a view, might put me above some of the tree cover. My ankle protested, but held. The slope was steep. I had to use my hands in places, grabbing small trees to pull myself up. My pack caught on branches. I was breathing hard. After 20 minutes of climbing, I reached an area where a rock slide had cleared a strip of trees, not a big opening, maybe 30 feet wide, but enough to see sky. I moved out onto the exposed rock and listened. Nothing. No helicopter sound. I stayed there for an hour, standing in the open, watching the sky. I got out my signal mirror and held it ready. I took off my dark blue jacket and put on the orange emergency blanket like a poncho, even though I was warm from the climb. No helicopter came back. The sun moved across the opening. Shadows shifted. I drank water and ate an energy bar. My ankle throbbed. I thought about what to do next. The fact that someone was searching meant I needed to make myself findable, which meant staying in one place or moving to a more visible location. It also meant I needed to think about why they were searching early. Had I written the wrong dates on my trip plan? I didn't think so, but it was possible. Had someone expected me to check in and gotten worried when I didn't? I lived alone. I didn't have regular check-ins with anyone. My brother knew I was hiking this week, but he wouldn't expect to hear from me until I got back. I couldn't figure it out. The helicopter didn't return that afternoon. As the light started to fade, I moved back into the trees and set up camp near the rockslide clearing. I wanted to stay close to the open area in case search activity resumed in the morning. I made a small fire, more for morale than warmth, using dry wood that wouldn't smoke much. I heated water and made the last of my freeze-dried dinners. After eating, I sat watching the fire burn down, listening to the forest settle into evening sounds. Tomorrow, I would stay near the clearing. I would be ready to signal. I would make myself as visible as possible, but sitting there in the dark, I felt a strange tension I hadn't felt before. Not fear, exactly. More like uncertainty about what I was waiting for. I woke up Thursday before dawn, shivering inside my sleeping bag. The fire had gone out hours ago. My ankle was worse, stiff and swollen enough that I could feel the pressure against my boot even before I tried to move. I didn't get up right away. I lay there listening to the dark forest, waiting for helicopter sounds that didn't come. When there was enough light to see, I crawled out of the tent and tried to stand. My ankle buckled on the first attempt. I caught myself against a tree, waited, tried again more carefully. It held my weight, but barely. Every step sent a sharp pain up my leg. I needed to pee. That simple task took 5 minutes, hobbling away from camp, leaning on trees, trying not to put full weight on my bad foot. After I sat on a log and looked at my remaining food, 1 energy bar, a handful of trail mix in a Ziploc bag, maybe 2 ounces total. I'd been rationing since Tuesday, but I'd also been moving, burning calories. Now I was hungry in a way that felt different from normal hunger. Emptier, more persistent. I ate half the energy bar and put the rest back in my pack. The morning stayed quiet. No helicopter, no distant engine sounds. Just birds and wind in the trees, and occasionally the creak of branches rubbing together. I moved out to the rockslide clearing and sat where I'd be visible from above. I had the orange emergency blanket spread on the rocks beside me, my signal mirror in my lap, the whistle on its lanyard around my neck. Waiting felt different than hiking. When I was moving, even lost, there was a sense of progress, of doing something. Sitting still made everything else louder. My hunger, my ankle, the silence. Around mid-morning I heard an airplane, high up, too high to see me. Just the faint sound of engines crossing the sky somewhere above the cloud layer that had moved in overnight. I watched the clouds anyway, following the sound until it faded. The temperature was dropping. The clouds were low and dark, rain weather. I should have stayed in the clearing, but by noon I was cold enough that I went back to camp and put on every layer I had. 2 shirts, my fleece, my rain jacket. My spare socks over my regular socks. I looked bulky and felt slightly warmer. I tried to start a fire, but my hands were clumsy. It took 3 attempts to get the striker to catch the tinder. Once the fire was going, I sat close to it, feeding it small sticks, letting the heat soak into my chest and face. My mind kept circling back to the helicopter. Why had it come early? Why hadn't it returned? Maybe they hadn't been looking for me at all. Maybe it was a different search. Someone else lost in a different part of the wilderness. That made sense. It would explain everything. But I didn't believe it. The timing was too coincidental. I tried to think if I'd told anyone else about my trip. My brother knew. I'd mentioned it to a co-worker last week. Had I been specific about the dates? I couldn't remember. Everything before Monday felt distant and unclear, like it had happened to someone else. The fire burned down. I didn't rebuild it. I was tired in a way that felt heavier than just lack of sleep. I went back out to the clearing in the early afternoon and sat with the emergency blanket wrapped around my shoulders. The clouds were lower now, touching the tops of the ridges. Visibility maybe a quarter mile. No one was going to fly in this weather. I knew that, but I stayed in the clearing anyway because I didn't know what else to do. Around 3 o'clock it started to rain. Light at first, then steady. Cold rain that soaked through the emergency blanket quickly, then through my rain jacket at the shoulders where the blanket didn't cover. I should have gone back to the tent immediately. Instead, I sat there getting wet, watching the clearing, listening. Some part of me convinced that the helicopter might still come, that I might hear it through the rain. I don't know how long I stayed. Long enough that I was shivering again. Long enough that my fingers were numb and my teeth were chattering. When I finally stood up, my ankle gave out completely. I went down hard on the wet rock, catching myself on my hands. Pain shot through my wrist. I sat there for a moment, rain running down my face, breathing hard. Getting back to camp took a long time. I had to crawl part of the way, dragging my pack, pulling myself along with my arms. The ground was slippery with wet leaves and mud. By the time I reached my tent, I was soaked through, shaking badly, and couldn't make my hands work properly. It took 3 tries to unzip the tent fly. I crawled inside and pulled my pack in after me, then just lay there in my wet clothes, too exhausted to do anything else. I needed to change into dry clothes. I needed to get into my sleeping bag. I needed to do basic things to stop the heat loss. I knew all of this. I just couldn't make myself move. The shaking got worse, my whole body trembling. I could hear my breath coming in short gasps. Eventually, I don't know how long, I managed to sit up. I peeled off my wet jacket, my wet fleece, my wet shirts, everything soaked. I found my spare shirt in my pack, the last dry thing I had, and pulled it on. It was just a cotton t-shirt, not warm, but dry felt like an improvement. I couldn't get my wet pants off. My hands weren't working well enough. I gave up and crawled into my sleeping bag with my wet pants still on. The sleeping bag was damp too. I'd left the tent partially unzipped and rain had gotten in, but it was warmer than nothing. I lay there shivering inside the bag, listening to rain hit the tent fly, my teeth chattering, my ankle throbbing, my empty stomach cramping. I thought about eating the rest of my food, the half-energy bar and the trail mix. But if I ate it now, that was it. Nothing left, and I might need it more tomorrow, or the day after. I thought about the helicopter again, about whether they'd come back when the weather cleared, about whether they were even looking for me. I thought about my filed trip plan, about Thursday afternoon when I was supposed to finish the loop. Tomorrow. They wouldn't start looking until I didn't show up, which meant Friday at the earliest, maybe not until Saturday. 2 more days, maybe 3. I had no food. I had one dry shirt. My ankle was bad enough that I couldn't walk. The temperature was dropping and everything was wet. 2 more days seemed like a very long time. The shivering slowly subsided. Not because I was warmer, but because my body was giving up on it. I felt hollowed out, empty. Rain kept falling. The light through the tent fabric dimmed as afternoon moved toward evening. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep, but sleep wouldn't come. Just a kind of half-conscious state, where I was aware of the cold and the pain and the hunger, but too tired to fully think about any of it. At some point it got dark. The rain continued. I lay there in the darkness, listening to water, feeling nothing much at all. I heard voices Friday morning, male voices calling something I couldn't make out. They sounded far away, distorted by the trees and the lingering fog. I was awake but hadn't moved yet. The rain had stopped sometime in the night. My sleeping bag was damp and cold. My body felt heavy and disconnected, like it belonged to someone else. The voices called again, closer this time. I should have responded immediately. Should have shouted or blown my whistle. Instead, I lay there listening, trying to understand if the voices were real or if I was hearing things. Grid Section 4. Check the drainage. Real voices. A search team. I unzipped the sleeping bag and tried to sit up. The movement made my head spin. I waited for it to pass, then crawled to the tent opening and looked out. 2 people in orange vests were moving through the trees about 50 yards downslope. They had radios, hiking poles, professional gear. I opened my mouth to call out, but my voice came out as barely a whisper. My throat was dry and tight. I tried again. Here. They didn't hear me. I found my whistle with numb fingers and blew it. 3 short bursts. Both searchers stopped and turned toward the sound. One of them raised a hand and they started moving uphill toward me. I crawled out of the tent part way and sat there in my wet pants and dry t-shirt, waiting. I was shivering again. The morning air was cold. They reached my camp within a couple of minutes. The first one, a woman in her 40s with short grey hair, crouched down next to me. "Are you Michael Garrett?" I nodded. "Okay, we've got you. Are you injured?" "Ankle," I said. My voice sounded strange, thin. "Twisted it. Can't really walk." The second searcher, a younger man, was already talking into his radio. "Base, this is Team 3. We have the subject. He's conscious and responsive. Appears mobile but injured. Requesting medical assessment and extraction." The woman was checking me over with quick professional movements, looking at my eyes, touching my forehead, taking my pulse. "You're hypothermic," she said. "We need to warm you up. Jim, get a blanket." The man pulled a silver thermal blanket from his pack and wrapped it around my shoulders. The woman helped me put on my dry fleece from inside the tent, then my rain jacket over that. "When did you last eat?" she asked. "Yesterday morning." "Little bit." She pulled out a granola bar and a bottle of water. "Small sips, and eat this slowly." I took the water. It was cold, but felt good in my throat. I drank too fast, and she took the bottle back. "Slower, you'll make yourself sick." I ate the granola bar in small bites, like she said. It tasted like cardboard, but my stomach woke up demanding more. "We'll get you more food once we get you down," she said. "How's your ankle?" "Swollen. Hurts to put weight on it." She examined it carefully, had me take my boot off. The ankle was purple and swollen to almost twice its normal size. "We're going to splint this before we move you," she said. They worked efficiently, splinted my ankle, gave me more water, packed up my tent and gear. The whole time they talked to each other and into their radios in calm professional voices. Coordinates, extraction point, medical status. I sat wrapped in the thermal blanket and watched them work. Everything felt distant and unreal, like I was watching it happen to someone else. "Can you walk with support?" the woman asked. "I don't know." "Let's try." They got me to my feet, one on each side of me. My good leg held. My bad ankle couldn't take any weight at all. We tried a few steps with me hopping, supported between them, but it was slow and awkward. "This isn't going to work for the terrain we need to cover," the man said. "We should call for the litter." More radio conversation. Then we waited. They gave me another granola bar, asked me questions about what had happened. I answered in short sentences, but I had trouble organizing the sequence of events. When did I lose the trail? When did I hurt my ankle? When did I run out of food? It all blurred together. "You did well," the woman said. "You stayed put once you were injured. That was smart." I didn't respond. It hadn't felt smart. It had felt like giving up. 40 minutes later, 2 more searchers arrived with a portable litter, a lightweight stretcher on a frame. They transferred me onto it and strapped me in. Then all 4 of them lifted it and started carrying me downhill. The movement was steady and controlled, but every jostle sent pain through my ankle. I closed my eyes and tried to focus on breathing. I must have dozed off because the next thing I knew we were in a clearing and there was a helicopter on the ground, rotors turning. Not the same one I'd seen Wednesday. This one was bigger, different colors. They loaded me into the helicopter. The woman climbed in after me. The noise was loud enough that conversation was impossible. I watched through the open door as we lifted off, the forest dropping away below us. The flight took maybe 15 minutes. We landed at what looked like a small airport or forest service station. An ambulance was waiting. They transferred me from the helicopter to a gurney to the ambulance. More people, more movement, everything happening quickly and professionally. At the hospital they put me in a bed and started an IV. A nurse took my vitals. A doctor came in and examined my ankle, ordered X-rays. People kept asking if I was in pain, if I needed anything, if there was anyone they should call. I answered their questions. Yes to pain, but it was manageable. No, I didn't need anything. Yes, they should call my brother. His number was in my phone if they could find it. They brought me food, soup and crackers and juice. I ate it slowly. My stomach cramped a little but held it down. The X-rays came back. No fracture, just a bad sprain. They wrapped it in a proper brace and gave me crutches and pain medication. A nurse told me I could leave once the IV finished. My brother was on his way to pick me up. I sat in the hospital bed wearing a gown they'd given me, my wet clothes in a plastic bag on the chair, waiting. There was a television on the wall showing a daytime talk show with the sound off. I watched it without really seeing it. A different nurse came in to check on me. She smiled. "You're lucky they found you when they did," she said. "Another day or 2 out there in this weather, with that ankle and no food." She shook her head. "You're very lucky." "Why were they searching?" I asked. "I wasn't supposed to be out until yesterday." "Oh." She checked a chart. It says here your mother reported you missing on Tuesday, said you always called her before a trip, and you hadn't called, and she couldn't reach you. She was worried enough that she contacted the ranger station. My mother. I hadn't spoken to my mother in 3 years, not since the argument at Thanksgiving. She lived in California. I didn't know she even had my current number. She saved your life, the nurse said, calling when she did. I nodded slowly. The nurse left. I sat there looking at the silent television, trying to process what she'd said. My mother had called, had reported me missing, had started the search 2 days early. I thought about the helicopter I'd seen Wednesday, about standing in the creek not waving, about the whole day I'd spent waiting in the clearing while they were already out looking for me somewhere else in the wilderness. The IV bag dripped steadily. Outside the window the afternoon was clear and bright. The weather had turned. My brother drove me back to Seattle that evening. He asked questions during the first 20 minutes of the drive. Was I okay? Did I need anything? What had happened out there? And I gave him short answers that seemed to satisfy him. After that we drove in silence, which was fine. I looked out the window at the passing trees and didn't think about much of anything. He helped me up the stairs to my apartment, asked if I wanted him to stay. I said no, I was just going to sleep. He looked uncertain, but nodded and said to call if I needed anything. After he left, I sat on my couch with my ankle propped up on the coffee table and looked around my apartment. Everything was exactly where I'd left it Monday morning. The coffee mug in the sink, the book on the side table, the jacket on the back of the chair. 4 days ago, I'd walked out of here planning to be gone for 3 days, and now I was back, and nothing had changed except me, and I couldn't articulate how. I took a shower, careful to keep my ankle dry. The hot water felt good. I stood under it for a long time. That night I slept 12 hours and woke up Saturday morning feeling empty rather than rested. My brother had texted asking how I was doing. I texted back that I was fine. A co-worker had texted saying she'd heard what happened and hoping I was okay. I didn't respond to that one. I made coffee and sat at my kitchen table drinking it. Outside my window, the city went about its Saturday business. People walking dogs, cars passing, normal life happening like it always did. My phone rang Sunday afternoon. An unfamiliar number. I almost didn't answer. Michael. A woman's voice. Older, hesitant. I knew who it was before she said anything else. It's your mother. I didn't say anything. The hospital gave me your number, she said. I hope that's okay. I just wanted to check that you're all right. I'm fine, I said. A pause on the line. I could hear her breathing. I was worried, she said. When you didn't call before your trip like you usually do, I had this feeling something wasn't right. I haven't called before trips in 3 years, I said. I know, but you used to, and I thought maybe you'd started again and I'd just missed it somehow. Her voice was quiet. I called your brother, and he said you were hiking, and when I couldn't reach you, I just kept thinking about that time you went to Olympic National Park, and that was 10 years ago. I know it was, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Another pause. I'm glad you're safe. I looked out my kitchen window at nothing in particular. A bird landed on the railing of my balcony, stayed for a few seconds, flew away. Thank you, I said finally, for calling the ranger station. Of course. She sounded like she might cry. You're my son. We were both quiet for a moment. Well, she said, I'll let you go. I just wanted to hear your voice, to know you're okay. I'm okay, I said. After we hung up, I sat at the table with my phone in my hand. I thought about calling her back, but I didn't know what I would say. I went back to work on Tuesday. People asked how I was feeling, and I said, fine, thanks. My ankle was healing. I could walk with one crutch now instead of two. Everything was returning to normal. At lunch, I sat in the break room eating a sandwich and half listening to my co-workers talk about a show they were watching. Someone asked if I'd seen it, and I said no. "You should check it out," she said. "It's really good." I said I would. That night I tried to watch the first episode, but I couldn't focus on it. I turned it off after 15 minutes and sat in the quiet of my apartment instead. The following Saturday, my brother invited me to a barbecue at his place. I almost said no, but couldn't think of a good reason to decline. When I got there, his house was full of people I half knew, friends of his, neighbors, people from his wife's book club. Everyone was friendly. Someone asked about my ankle and I gave the abbreviated version of what had happened. They made sympathetic noises, and someone said, "I must have been terrified out there." I said it wasn't so bad. Later I stood on my brother's back deck holding a beer I wasn't drinking, watching his kids play in the yard. My brother came out and stood next to me. "You seem quiet," he said. "I'm always quiet." "Quieter than usual." He took a drink of his beer. "You doing okay? Really?" "Yeah," I said. "Just tired still, I think." He nodded like that made sense, but I could tell he didn't quite believe me. I left early, saying my ankle was bothering me. In the car, I sat for a few minutes before starting the engine, watching the house through the windshield. Through the windows, I could see people moving around, talking, laughing. Normal Saturday evening. I drove home and spent the rest of the weekend alone. The dreams started about 2 weeks after I got back. Not every night, but often enough. In them I was always back in the forest, but the details were wrong. Sometimes I was looking for something I'd lost. Sometimes I was trying to reach a place I could see but never get closer to. Sometimes I was just walking through trees that all looked the same. I'd wake up and lie in the dark, and the dreams would fade quickly, the way dreams do, leaving just a feeling I couldn't name. My ankle healed. I stopped using the crutch. I went back to my routine: work, groceries, gym, home. On weekends I read or watched things, or sometimes met my brother for lunch. One Sunday in late June, I drove out to a trailhead east of the city. Not the same wilderness area. A different one, smaller, with well-marked trails and lots of day hikers. I sat in the parking lot with the engine off, looking at the trailhead sign. It was a beautiful day, clear and warm, perfect hiking weather. I sat there for maybe half an hour, watching other people arrive and head up the trail. Families with kids, couples with dogs, groups of friends. Eventually I started the car and drove back to the city. I still have my hiking gear in the closet, my pack, my tent, my sleeping bag that I had professionally cleaned. Sometimes I notice them when I'm looking for something else, and I think about planning another trip. There are dozens of trails I haven't done, hundreds probably, but I haven't gone yet. My mother calls every few weeks now. We talk for 10 or 15 minutes about nothing important. The weather, her garden, how work is going. Neither of us mentions Thanksgiving 3 years ago or whatever we fought about. Neither of us mentions the search. The conversations are awkward and stilted, but we keep having them. I don't know what that means, or if it means anything at all. Sometimes I think about the helicopter I saw that first time. Wednesday afternoon, moving fast over the ridge, and me standing in the creek not waving. If I'd signaled them then, they might have found me a day and a half earlier, before the rain. Before I'd run out of food, before everything got as bad as it got, but I didn't know they were looking for me. I think about that sometimes, about standing there watching it pass, assuming I had more time. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that information now.